Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Partnership Guys podcast. I'm Todd Leonardis, and I'm here with Steven Schneider and Rob Stoker. We are the Partnership Guys. Before we talk about what we're going to be talking about today, I just want to let you know that if you are in a partnership or desire to be in a partnership or desire to get out of a partnership with your guys, we help our clients either build, fix, exit, or end their partnership. We call that getting them to the win. And not everybody has the same win. So please reach out to us. We're happy to, talk with you and see if we can help you. This is episode 5 of season 2 of the Partnership Guys podcast. Today, we're going to be talking about what we like to call the partnership prenup and why every great partnership really does need an exit plan. Because planning, it's avoided a lot because people think that it's negative, but it's really planning for the end of the partnership doesn't weaken it. It actually strengthens it by creating some clarity, confidence, trust, and if done right, remove ambiguity and really let people know where they stand. We find that there are, operating agreements are done very poorly sometimes. This is not addressed at all. We believe it's by design by the people that are writing these documents, meaning attorneys, because attorneys they like ambiguity. That's what gets them in the courtroom. So we try to help people so they don't need to do that. And it's a great way to really start a partnership by talking about how you're going to end it. It's an important topic and unrelated to business, but in personal, with marriages, you try to tell people, like, listen, it's a piece of paper that you don't want to have to ever look at again. You want it to get dusty at the bottom of the safe, but if the day comes and the relationship is over, that would be one of the most valuable documents in your life, not just financially, but emotionally and economically, in a sense that the amount of time that it takes, you're fighting over a lot less, if not nothing. So, a lot of times entrepreneurs avoid exit conversations because they feel it's pessimistic. They don't want to think it'll ever happen to them. Because every optimism actually hides future realities is what we find. And every partnership will eventually change. A successful partnership that goes on a very long time, it's eventually going to change. Eventually that partnership will end. People retire, people pass, whatever it might be.
Yeah, but to that early optimism point, right? Like when partners get together initially, they're in love. Mm-hmm. And everything is good. They're excited about starting up a business together. And they're focused on the business, right? How do we find clients? How do we provide the service or the product that we're looking to provide? Love you too. Let's make this happen. Let's make some money. And they don't think about what might happen if there's an exit, if there's a problem, if how do you want to get out of this business versus how do I want to get out of this business? Somebody might want a lifestyle business and they just want to do it until they retire. Other people in a partnership might be, and we've talked to partners. I mean, we just talked to somebody not too long ago. It's 2 partners, very aligned, good friends. And one guy was saying, well, I think we can build this thing and get out in a year or 2. And the other guy's like, I'm thinking 10 years. Well, you got to have those conversations. You got to talk about, when you would want to exit, why you would want to exit, what would trigger that exit. And so that optimism in the beginning and that excitement in the beginning oftentimes is why partners don't ever talk about those exits. Why they don't have those conversations. And when it gets to that point, now you're in trouble because you're totally misaligned on what you want to accomplish.
Yeah, because really the best time to discuss an exit is when nobody is, it's not even a thought. You know what I mean? Nobody's thinking about it. Nobody wants it. That's the best time to do it because you are optimistic. You go into these agreements and you go into the partnership with hope. For the most part, right? Hope and success in mind. So you're looking at the positive and you're not, you're not upset with the person. You're not pissed with the person, whatever it might be. So you want to negotiate this stuff when everything's good in the event that everything doesn't stay good. So, planning for the end doesn't mean you're expecting the end to happen. It's just,
I've been
proactive.
There. When you first start, how do you talk about the end? It's much easier to not talk about it. It's how do you talk about the end when you're first starting? You don't even know, to Stephen, your point, you don't know what you have. Do we have a business? What is this? What is it going to be? I don't know. We'll just figure it all out as we go. And it's it's the opposite. It's really important to have those tough conversations. What if this doesn't work out? What if it does work out? What if this really works out? What does that look like for us? What do our lives look like? And when in the so many great partnerships that I've had, we've had those conversations early. One of my examples is in making the first ever girls lacrosse headgear. We didn't know for years and years that it took us to make it, whether we'd even have a business. But as we were making it, and it was hard for me to talk about what happens when we pass the standard, when we actually have an approved headgear that is the first one ever to put on a field, when I didn't even have it. So, but it was so important to have all those conversations and get through that awkwardness of these conversations might be for nothing. Maybe we're talking about how we end a partnership of a business that we're just starting, and it will never be a conversation again. And that's what, we're telling people is have those conversations now, start those conversations, get those going. If you want our support in there, we can support those conversations in so many ways, because like I always talk about, the one time that I didn't know my business partner or neighbor, we didn't know what we had instantly, didn't have those conversations, and the business just exploded financially instantly. And all of it was, we'll deal with it. That's a great problem to have. We'll deal with it when we have that problem. But guess what? We had that quote unquote problem, and it just, because we didn't have those conversations,
we've talked to tons
of money was there, it just made the problems exponentially worse and led to a 10-year lawsuit.
We've talked to tons of partners who just don't have a proper playbook. I mean, they don't have things like buy-sell agreements. They don't have a method to fund that buy-sell agreement. They haven't put together retirement plans. They haven't put together what happens if unexpectedly somebody exits a partnership, and that could be disability or death. What happens when all of a sudden a partner decides that they want out and they just stop doing their work? There's all kinds of situations that can lead to a partner needing to exit a business. And a lot of those are unexpected. And just hoping that when you get to that point that you've got a good partnership strategy is no strategy at all. It's a recipe for disaster. It's a recipe for a 10-year lawsuit. It's a recipe for me not talking to my uncle for 25 years because that partnership ended badly. And so, having those things in place help to really, not just protect the business, but also protects the relationship. It really prepares you for both the expected and the unexpected, and to be prepared to deal with those things.
To your point, right? Hope is not a partnership strategy, because great partnerships don't really prepare for what they expect to happen. They kind of prepare for what they don't want to happen, right? That's really where the preparation is so key and important.
Because a good partnership agreement doesn't just talk about how the business is going to start. It talks about how it's going to end. What happens if things go sideways? What happens if things go great? I didn't have that with my things financially, and the business on paper was as good of a business as I've ever heard of instantly, just checks all over the desk, big amounts, getting jobs, people calling us to do jobs, on paper, just an amazing start to a business. But two people who could not have been more on different pages with what they wanted out of it, with what they wanted to accomplish, with how they wanted to go about our business, with even getting along together. We didn't get along. We didn't like each other, and we didn't even realize
and that's what happened, right? Because you didn't put a proper partnership agreement in place with all the things that we were just talking about. Emotion it came flying into that relationship right from the get-go, which means you never had an opportunity to even really get this thing on track and to get aligned, right? You were constantly fighting because you were not aligned with what you wanted to do, with how you wanted to build the business and how you wanted to get out of the business, ultimately. I'm sure that you guys didn't talk about that at all.
We didn't. And for a while, the money masked everything. And the money we see it with business partnerships we have, that it was just the money masks the not having a good partnership. And in the end, it's going to catch up, and it's going to catch up quickly. And when it does, it's going to go downhill really, really quickly and spiral. And that's why all these things and having the conversations up front and talking about it all is just, it's crucial.
You need to really protect the relationship and not just the business, right? Because they go hand in hand. If you're not protecting that relationship and have things in place for the very end, you're gonna hurt the business. It's just, we've seen it time and time again. It just happens. Doing this in advance really helps you remove emotion from the future decisions, right? Like the emotion's gone, right? The actual emotion that's in there is I want what's best for everybody. And if you do it right and in the beginning, if you don't have it, we've seen it's complete. The fights that we have seen because of the emotion that was put in, because they didn't have this, this business prenup, this partnership prenup done in advance. It destroys them, it destroys their family, and it absolutely destroys the business.
I just had this conversation with a client a couple of days ago.
Mm-hmm.
That's all they could do was fight about how to go on to the next step of the business or exit the business or even end the partnership, and because they don't have good systems in place.
And when we engage them, they will have those systems in place. When when we start working with them, there might be less people by the time we're done working with them, but everybody will get to their win. Some might be exiting and some might be, building at that point. So, if you want to create a fair process before the conflict exists, that's why you got to be very proactive on here. Again, to preserve your family, to preserve your relationship, to, preserve your friendship with that partner, presumably. So it's not just about business here, but it does affect
emotions get in the way. There's a lot that goes on that unless you realize up front that you're on the same page in so many different ways, it's going to catch up and it's going to not be good for anybody and drag out. And the earlier you can have those conversations, just the better, because like I said, we had a great business, but without those conversations, if we had those conversations, we both would have realized before we even started the business that we were not meant to start a business together. If we had any of, let alone all of the great concepts that you guys write about in your book, the way you've conducted your partnership over these decades, if we had any of that early on, the truth is we would not have started a business. And guess what? It would have saved 10 years of being in courts, legal fees, fighting over what was negative money. We were paid more to lawyers, both of us did, than there was there to argue over. But it became personal, it became emotional, and we did not like each other. We truly did not like each other, and we were very proud to not like each other. Different personalities, different ways of going about things, different ways of conducting ourselves, handling our business, and both of us thought that the other one's way was not the right way. And we didn't realize that when we started. It was just the optimism of having a business. And like I said, in other businesses that I've had, that trust and respect has been there. Amazing partnerships. It's there with the three of us when we have, discussions about how we're helping people and the right path forward. And there's no right or wrong. These are hard conversations. These are hard paths to take. And the three of us have those same conversations, but putting it out there and getting out, where we want to take things, what we want to do with things, what happens if things go wrong, what happens if things go great. The more you have those conversations, the more you love them, embrace them, and know that they're the best thing for not only you, your business, your family, your lifestyle, your stress level, everything. How many partners are we talking to that their stress level to me is everything? Forget about the dollars and what the business is making. You see the stress in their face, what it's causing to them, the collateral damage to their family, their friends, their other people involved. It can be brutal for sure. And I'm so glad we're here to help people, avoid a lot of those things.
Because to your point, clarity really does reduce the fear, and a good solid exit plan will give the partnership and the partners the confidence to actually build and take bigger risks because they know what the rules are. And it helps when everybody knows what happens if life changes, right? Steve and I had some very serious conversations. I was recovering from a very, very bad auto accident when we first started working together. and had to have multiple surgeries. And we had to have the conversation about, all right, what happens if this surgery doesn't go well? What happens if, I'm in another car accident, I'm paralyzed? What do we need to do there? And having this all spelled out early was, it was so comforting to me personally that I was like, all right, he's aware, and we have a plan. And, Stephen, obviously having his family a lot before me, is just in a different stage of life. So things sometimes change, and it's ironic, but planning, an exit often really strengthens that long-term commitment, right? Because sometimes that not knowing, people might be like, is this like, am I going to be fighting for the next 2 years? Like, do I want out? And am I going to be fighting? Whereas if you don't have documents in place, you don't know that you don't have, certificate of read values, you don't know what the company's worth, you're going to end up fighting, especially if you don't have, you're going to be fighting if you do not have a solid exit plan in place. Because like I said, when we started this show, I personally believe it's by design by the people that are actually writing a lot of these documents, which is why we wanted to kind of come in and really help people in advance. Because Rob was in it, I've been in it, like we've all been in these protracted legal battles with ex-partners, and it would have been really easy to eliminate 90% of the havoc if we talked about all this stuff early. So we're talking from our experience here,
I mean, that exit plan is a big part of setting the rules of the game in the partnership. I mean, it helps you establish what your guardrails are, which actually helps you to have more clarity and not work from the known versus working from assumptions. Because we all know what happens when we make assumptions. We start to fill in those gaps with stories that are likely not accurate and not true. I assume that this is what you want. I'm probably wrong. And so having those conversations right from the get-go and creating that understanding of, where do I want to take this and where would I want to exit? Number one. And number two, what happens if there's a disaster, something happens to one of us, whatever. I mean, anybody could walk across the street, get hit by a bus. And so you want to have a plan in place to make sure that that's not going to destroy the business, either because of an accident or because you didn't have a clear understanding of what your partner wanted. And, when everybody knows the rules and they understand the guardrails, they're going to spend a lot less time worrying about those things and spend more time actually building the business and building the partnership.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that about the 90% of the way there. You know this, and maybe this is the first time I'm talking about it, but in Bubba Cruz Burritos that I own, 3 quick serve Mexican restaurants, had a partner, and we had all those conversations. So we were 90% of the way there, like you said. That last 10% was hard, but we got it done, and now we both got to the win. I'm staying in the business and excited to build and grow the business, and he's out of the business, and he's excited to go about his life, and we're good terms and wish nothing but the best for each other. 2 very different wins, very different paths. And we were able to get there because I read your book. I brought these concepts to him early on in the business. We had these conversations, but it still only got us 90% of the way there. It just gave us the ability to get to the win, to do that 90. Without that 90%, we weren't going to finish off the last 10%. If we had to get 100% of the way there, we were not going to get there, and it would have been really bad. Because we did those things, we were able to do it. Still hard, but gave us the ability to get it done.
And it took a process that would have taken years and shrunk it down to months.
Yes.
So, I mean, it's really, really, really important to do this in advance because, really a partnership agreement shouldn't just explain how to start a business together. It should also explain how to end one with dignity, fairness, respect, if that day were to ever come. So it's, a great exit plan isn't preparing for failure. It's preparing for life, as I said earlier. So guys, you want to make sure that you're having these conversations and you want to get it documented. And again, the best time to do it is when things are going well. So again, this was a great topic. I really appreciate you guys, as always, jumping on and sharing your insight. We might have had a little bit of technical difficulty. If so, to the audience, we apologize. But you know where to find us next time on episode 26. You could find us on Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, anywhere where you think you'd find us. But the best place to reach out to us is at thepartnershipguys.com. You'll get a direct email to us, and we're here to help. There's also, some good tools that we can give you so you can evaluate, get a snapshot of where you feel your partnership is right now. That'll help you kind of understanding. And if you're thinking about it, invest the 3 minutes into doing the survey, and you'll get immediate results. So once again, everybody, thank you so much. We really want to help you get to the win, whether it's building it, fixing it, exiting it, or ending it. And we can't wait to talk to you again. So thanks very much, everybody.